So we had this idea of doing what are our top 10 moments from the first 10 episodes. So we're just going to go back and forth. My number 10, your number 10, my number 9. Well, you go first. Your number 10 first.
Without any further ado, Maddalena Palermo.
Mm-hmm. Love Maddalena.
And Maddalena is Italian.
Yeah.
And you would think that my favorite part of that story is that her husband learned Italian to propose to her, which is really sexy and romantic. But what I love to hear from her was when she described her panic attack.
I started to have panic attacks. So I think my first panic attack was Mother's Day of when my kid was 2 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. It actually requires hospitalization, yes.
So I thought that was fascinating. And she's just such a wonderful, kind human being. So
She really is. Yeah, and I've known her for years, and I did not know that about her.
What was your number 10?
My number 10 was episode 4, Scott Clary. Mine was like a really good aha moment from Scott Clary, because he has his own podcast on success. So he interviews countless people on how they were successful and how they define
Big
success.
time people, huge guests like that you would know of.
Yeah, top-notch personalities. And he said something during it about the thing that you're trying to accomplish, somebody already did.
I truly believe that if somebody else has achieved it, there is a pathway that I can reverse engineer that will allow me to achieve the next thing that I want. It's just a matter of marking out those points on a map.
It's just a great mindset. Like, don't start from scratch. Go figure out who already did it and just reverse engineer and then start. Give yourself a pathway by pulling it back and then start.
Yeah.
I love that.
So smart. Everyone can do that. My number 9 was Scott Clary.
Oh, how about that?
Believe it or not. But you know what I loved? I loved that re-engineering thing. I always love the human part of the stories too. So I loved when he spoke about the way that he learned how to succeed in business. The model that he kept using was when he lost weight in college.
Yeah.
And the discipline and the things that he did to lose weight and get in shape in college, he transferred that over to his business acumen.
So I always played a lot of sports. I always played a ton of sports. And, you know, in university, when you stop playing sports, you start drinking and eating like that, you like put on a whole bunch of weight. And like, that was like not okay with me. And I remember thinking like, okay, up until this point in my career, like health was very like ad hoc. You just play a lot of sports, you know, you eat, but you play a lot of sports. So you don't really, like, you always kind of look good. And I'm like, I got to be like very purposeful. As opposed to just living life ad hoc, I got to be like very purposeful with my health and wellness. And then you start to research and you start to learn, you start to unpack. And then I realized that, like, I think it was probably because of like the physical change in my body from adopting like a very strict health and wellness routine, that I understood that if you actually unpack the steps that it takes to get to somewhere, like you can actually action that. And a lot of it is just like willpower and grinding it out and like going in day out, because that's like, I think the first, like, this is when I'm still in college. This is when I'm still like at university in Canada, but I'm not really that focused on my career. I'm, you know, I'm messing around in classes, but I'm very purposeful about like, I don't want to be a fat ass.
Yeah, he was very open about that.
Yeah.
My number 9 goes to fun, more fun. Episode 1, Nikki Stanzione.
Yeah.
Nikki, if you're watching this, you already know.
Nikki
Your stories were amazing in episode 1.
I hear about this movie, Boogie Nights. Now, I get like all the details of it, and it says it's about the porn industry. It's about drugs. It's about just awful things. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh no, like, what is this movie? Like, what am I getting myself into? I went to the fitting, got the fitting, and then they give me the directions to the house where the actual shoot was going to be for that day. And it is one of those houses. So I pull up and I see all these girls and I see bathing suits, and I just got this really bad feeling, and I got scared. And I thought, I hope I'm not walking into something that is really, that I will look back and say, why did I do that? That was such a bad move. Well, now flash, so I didn't do it. I called my agent. I said, I'm not doing this. I don't know what this is, but I don't think this is right. And that's my favorite scene, when they're all at the pool at Burt Reynolds' house. That was Burt Reynolds' house in the movie.
Okay.
Anyway, that's a big regret, because it became one of my favorite movies. I would have been in an iconic scene of one of my favorite movies with some of my favorite stars if I had not been a little chicken.
And that's that one thing she's like, that was the mistake I made. That was the one mistake.
The fish that got away.
Right.
No,
But
I
she
love
had
that
lots
one.
of success.
That's
I
actually
love that episode, episode 1.
That's actually on my list too. So
Yeah?
Yeah. Okay, so my number 8 was Nancy Hicks, episode 7. She, if you watch her episode, gets deep, talks about grief. She also talks about religion. I had told her about an experience that I had when I thought I went to Bible school. I went to Bible study, and I got kicked out of Bible study. So I went to Bible study, and I had so many questions, and I kept asking these questions. Like, they believe in the literal translation of the Bible.
Yeah.
I was coming from a perspective of like, listen, I know nothing about this, and I'm trying to learn, but I'm also questioning the validity of these stories, which don't seem real to me. So eventually I was kicked out of Bible study.
Oh my gosh.
By my Bible study teacher.
See, there you go. I'm
Yes.
like, are you kidding me?
Right.
When I hear that,
Right.
it makes me crazy and cringe and feel like, God, I'm so sorry. Gandhi said, the trouble with Christians is they look so unlike their Christ.
Oh my God, what a great quote.
Right? When I hear that, I am so genuinely sorry. I mean that. No perfect churches, right?
Right,
No perfect
right.
church. Because as soon as people arrive, oh, there it goes.
She really listened to me, and I don't know. That was such an emotional episode. I loved every part of it, but that was the thing that stuck out for me. Who's your number 8?
My number 8 was actually Maddalena.
Oh,
which
it
you've
was
already spoken
your
to,
number 8
episode
moment.
10.
Episode 10.
Yeah, and it was centered around her husband and just her journey. It was really about her journey. She came over here. She's just one of those women that when I think I even said this in the intro, she reminds me of you. When she decides to do something, she goes about it in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Like she wanted to be a handbag designer. She went out and found the Italian designers, like she's from Italy, so it was a little easier for her, but the best leather designers.
Yes.
Right? What she's doing now with coaching in the healthcare world, she's going about it the best possible way. Like I love that mindset. And that's what stuck with me for her.
Yeah, it was July 2002. I came here as a student. I didn't speak any English. I mean, a little bit, like basic stuff. But yeah, I came here to learn English, basically. I walked into her office asking, I would like to learn English, maybe go to England or Ireland. That's what I expected. And then they asked, and they said, what about United States? I was like, I don't know if I can afford that. I was like, no, if you pass the test, everything is paid for. So I was like, okay, when do I do the test? What about now? And I did it. So I had to create the opportunity. So that's why I came.
As a human, like her whole story with her family and coming here and her relationship with her parents and her dad. And it was just a great,
Yeah, what a beautiful lady.
amazing episode.
I think it's an underrated episode. I don't think it gets enough love. But Maddalena, and now what she's doing for the healthcare industry and helping doctors with their mental health, which has to be such a hard thing to admit if you're a doctor especially after COVID.
Yeah,
she was wonderful. Agreed.
Number 8. What's number 7?
Number 7. Okay, my number 7 was Sean Ziegler. And the reason why he was my number 7 favorite moment was because, and this was the first, we did 2 episodes with Sean. So this was his first episode, which was episode 5. Episode 5. So, and it's episode about, maybe you don't need college to succeed. My favorite moment in that episode was when he actually sold lollipops.
Kindergarten, we would go to Our Deli, which is this breakfast spot.
Kindergarten.
And
like 5 or 6.
Yeah, however old that is. We would go to this breakfast spot with my dad, a couple times a week before school, and they gave free lollipops. So I would go and get a bunch of free lollipops, and then I would go into the scarce lunchroom where there was no lollipops and to sell them for like $5-10 a pop.
What?
And they would
Lollipops for $5 in kindergarten?
Sometimes
You
people
were
give me-
price gouging just a bit.
There was no
Just a bit.
lollipops. I was the only person who had lollipops.
Scarcity value,
Yes.
right?
Scarcity value. So that was probably my earliest taste. My mom would make me give back a lot of the money.
Are you kidding me?
It's kind of like fencing at an early
Huge.
age.
Yeah,
What's
actually,
he doing?
probably was a little illegal, but he's done with it now. So please don't
I
approach
think
him.
the statute of limitations.
Don't approach. So that was my number 7 moment. What was yours?
My number 7 was episode 8 of John Moyer,
Okay.
the magician turned hypnotist, and just what he's able to do. And we have footage of that, I think, in there.
stage. It's 115 degrees. That sun is beating down. You can feel the sweat dripping down your neck. It's dripping down the front of you.
You know, when you're bringing a group of people up on stage, a lot of it in one regard is throwing mud up against the wall and seeing how much sticks. You know, if you're working with somebody one-on-one, there's a feedback loop. You can specifically cater that to that individual. But now when you have a group of people on stage, you know, you're kind of taking a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
And there's little things that you can do during the induction. There's certain things that you're knowing what to look for with people, because there are very real responses that somebody gives when they are legitimately hypnotized versus when somebody is trying to pretend to be hypnotized. So you're able to, you know, you're able to work that.
This is a guy that reinvented himself completely. He was a comedian, and then he. Fast forward, he's a very successful. I know, right?
There's like a lot of stuff in between.
A little bit happened in the middle.
Yeah.
He's a very successful hypnotist.
We asked him point blank, is that real?
And he did. He does it with soldiers. And you know, soldiers in front of their command are not going to do that kind of stuff. Right?
Yeah.
They're harder, and yet
I loved
he still
him.
manages to do it.
I loved him.
Great.
There's a
episode.
moment from that one a little further up in mine, which I'll
okay,
talk
cool.
about. I'll talk about too. Okay, so what are we on?
Number 6.
Number 6. Okay, here it is. This is it.
Was
my
fast.
number 6 most favorite moment was John Moyer's episode
8.
Episode 8.
Yep.
But you know what my favorite part was?
No.
When you
there was a lot.
You told his joke. So
I told his joke.
John
that was great. I was in a great delivery. Are you kidding me?
John Moyer's a comedian, and you remembered one of his jokes.
Oh,
and you
what is
told
this,
it
a
like a
funny joke?
newscaster. You're like, and then he went to the...
And then the duck said, "I'll drive."
That's my favorite. We'll let you guys listen to it right now, and you tell me.
Dude, I gotta tell you, I watched some of your comedy, and this one joke, I was literally laughing, belly laughing, and it's just going to be hard to hear somebody tell you back your joke in a terrible way. I'm sure.
Give it a try. Give it a shot, Mark.
It was like, you know, I rented this DVD or I rented this CD. I don't even know what it was. Yeah. But it was, they always talk about anti-piracy in the beginning. Like, do not download or just copy, you know, or copy this. You wouldn't shoplift. You wouldn't steal a car. So why would you steal this? And he's like, I got news for you. I've shoplifted.
I've stolen a car.
Yeah. I'm from Jersey. It was a great
awesome.
line. It was such a great
so
line.
Cool.
Number 6, right?
That was my number 6.
My number 6 is Matt Cabrey and Anthony.
I hope you don't say the same one I'm going to say. Go ahead. What was it?
No, I bet I don't.
Okay.
Number 6. Overall, what I took from that is the importance of having people in your life that will say yes to you 100% of the time. Like Matt, and he's taught JoJo to do the same thing.
We've all gotten a message from a friend or a colleague, or maybe a total stranger, and the message says, "I'd love to get together sometime." Mm-hmm. And they've never listed a time or a place to meet. So now the burden is on the recipient of that message to say, "Okay, I could say, hey, great to meet with you too. Let me know some times at work," or you can respond back with, "Be happy to meet. Here are 3 times at work for me." And I've just programmed myself to always make those times available for folks, because I don't want to go through this dance of back and forth of, you know, who's going to set a date, time, and location to get together. So I try to make it easy and efficient, and it's a scoochy aspect that I've tried to master.
I'm gonna have to look that up when I get out of here.
Might be an Urban Dictionary.
Urban Dictionary.
Somebody who actively tries to help you in your life. Actively.
Yeah.
Not just, oh, you lost your job. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Like, what do you need? What do you want to get into? Maybe I know people. I'm going to connect you. Talk to this person.
Connectors.
I love that.
They're amazing. And I actually said you're like that.
Thank
I
you.
said it in the episode, and I truly believe that. Like, you will help anyone.
Yes, I remember that.
That's amazing. Here's what's so weird. That's my number 5. Episode number 9. So, but my favorite story, which I thought you would steal too, was when Matt Cabrey tried out to be the Philly Fanatic.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
I once auditioned to be the Philly Fanatic.
Nice.
No!
The infamous.
That's an awesome story. Let's hear it.
Oh my God.
I love it.
So I happened to be looking through and learned about auditions for a mascot in Philadelphia. And I discover it's for the Philly Fanatic, which at this time had been in existence for about 10 or 12 years. And I said, okay, I went for it. I said, what do I have to lose? I'm going to go down and audition. So I walk in, no costume. You just got to perform.
Wow.
Not wearing a mask or not wearing an outfit or not wearing any kind of
I guess I get that. Yeah.
any kind of what I would call, guard
Yeah.
to protect you. So
How many people were there? Like, set the stage. Like,
they had it was a room like this. They had a table with like 6 or 8 people who worked in a variety of positions within the Phillies organization. And you had to, they played music and you had to like perform in different ways. You had to have fun. You had to do goofy things. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
how long did you have to do that? Like,
you only had like 5 minutes each. And there were,
long time.
This was at the old Veterans Stadium, and there was, 16 people out in the concourse who were all waiting to be called in, and you all got your turn. And I was not expecting that level of what I would call exposure, that level of vulnerability.
Yeah.
So I didn't perform the way I had expected to and the way I wanted to.
So the story is
you gotta hear that
hilarious.
story.
Plus, Anthony Jojo Queenan's accent. He's Australian. I love that.
He's
part.
a good guy. All right, number 5. My number 5 is actually Nancy Hicks, who you've spoken to already. She's episode 7. The episode, a lot of it centers around the loss of her son.
Yeah.
But she was very deeply rooted in faith, and some people that would drive away from their faith, some people that would drive, which I still can't wrap my head around how it drove her closer to her faith.
Yeah.
She lived her life in faith. She's in ministry. This is who she is as a person. And then, you could say God took the one thing that she valued most in life, her son, her own son, and how she
Handled that.
traveled that road.
And in a windowless room in 2021, David and my husband Cam were sitting there, and he was about to do his final round of chemotherapy. And David said, "None of this is working. What's our plan B?" And the oncologist said to David, "There is no plan B. It's hospice." And so David was put on hospice, and after 6 weeks, on May 1st, we watched our unbelievable son with his whole life ahead of him die. And let me tell you, when it comes to walking with God, I help people walk with God. I love to serve people, as you mentioned. I love to watch people come alive in their faith, like not just like trudge through life. I have a book called Meant to Live, Living in Light of the Good News. When that happened to our son David, I was utterly, I'm going to use the word destroyed. My heart was destroyed. And when I say destroyed, I don't mean it's gone forever. I mean like shredded, is being currently rebuilt. But I am here to say the grief journey has been real for me. Totally real. And I have faced it and done the hard work in the last 2 years. And it's my relationship with God, it's very different right now.
From screaming at God all the way to acceptance and getting closer. Like, that's the fact that she got there, that the whole story will stay with me forever.
My 4th most favorite moment was Brandon DeShields. And if you go back and listen to Brandon, he's one of our longer episodes because he just had such an incredible life. But my story that I loved, which was a sad story, but also a happy story, was when he was in, did you have this one too? When he was in solitary confinement.
Okay.
And he had decided that his life wasn't worth living.
I feel like everything I had wanted to lose or didn't want to lose, was gone. It was gone. And I was like, you know what? Time to plan this thing. I planned the whole thing. I was like, I'm going to attack this officer.
Oh my gosh.
He's a nice man too, which is crazy. Like, if I hope to see him eventually in time, like, man, I was planning on doing this to you. And I know how he is. He'd have joked like, man, I would have did this and that too. Like, he's a funny guy. He's a nice guy. He's just the biggest guy there.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to just do like a suicide by officer type thing.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was kind of cliche.
You genuinely got to that point.
Oh yeah, I was planning that thing out, man. Like, they always make the rounds when they come in. And I'm like, cool. And I know him. He doesn't want you hanging anything in your cell. Like, he doesn't want like your sweatshirt draped over anything, nothing up over your window like a curtain, anything like that. So I'm like, I'm just going to hang this up. I mean, he doesn't care what it is. He just doesn't want anything draped over anything. So I'm like, I'm going to drape my sweatshirt up. And and that I was in the OSU at the time. They have like these closets in there, and I'm just gonna wait in the closet. He's gonna come in, and I'm fit now. I'm stronger now. Like I'm like cool. I'm gonna like make this happen, and I'm waiting on this shift, and I'm like, it seemed like 2:00 took forever to get here. So I'm just reading this book, but I get like trapped in the book. Mastery of Destiny by James Allen. And before I know it, they're calling count time. Counts at like 4:00, like 4:30.
So you missed the window.
Yep. And was just dug into the book and came out of that. Like it was a 72-hour process. It was wild, 72-hour process. And I was like, you know what? It started as a thing of revenge. Like everyone that left me, I'm going to make them regret it. And then I realized, like, you know what? Like, my life is up to me. I get to choose it.
It was so fascinating.
Well, I got lost in...
Yeah, he got lost in a book.
Number 4 is episode... I don't know why I'm laughing. Episode 3, Ed Doherty.
I love Ed
story
Doherty.
about... Because he was a chef, but this is before he was a chef. He was a struggling chef. He was working with famous chefs. And,
I know what you're going to say.
And he didn't know what he was doing. And... he was told, make a hollandaise sauce.
I went in there and I was like, oh yeah, I can do this and do that. I was putting parsley on a plate. I had no clue.
Oh my God.
I was thrown into this kitchen and I had no idea what I was doing. Like I realized in like one moment, like, what did I do? Any parsley I could put on a plate?
No, come on. You knew more than that.
Oh, I did not.
Seriously?
I knew some. I was really not good.
So what'd you do?
Well, because it was 1980 and you can get away with that crap, I had a copy. I had a copy of Julia Child's The Art of French Cooking. I put it in my locker, and every time the chef would go make some hollandaise, I'd be like, I wonder what that is. I swear to God.
No way.
I would go downstairs.
I love it.
And I'd go upstairs, and he was like, no, not like that. What are you doing? Oh, I'm sorry. This is what we did at the last place. And I just lied myself
my
through.
locker.
Wow, you faked it till you maked it.
Yeah, and 2.5 years later, I was the executive chef.
So he was fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
That's another
underappreciated episode. Ed Doherty episode.
Great.
Unbelievable. It's our
episode.
mom's,
Great guy.
both of our mom's favorites.
Yeah. My mother talks about Ed all the time. Like, come on, Mom.
He's really the ladies love him. So, but what's weird is my number 3 is also about the Ed Doherty episode. When he told the story of, and this is another kind of emotional thing, because I feel like when we have these stories where people have like been in the trenches and then they succeed, like people can learn from how they've gotten out of the trenches. So Ed found himself in a situation where he looked in the mirror and said, I am an asshole.
The journey along the way, I just wanted to build happy, high-performing teams. That was my goal. And I just happened to be a chef. And I didn't know that until later. But I realized my behavior did not sync up to my why and what I wanted to accomplish.
Well, what's an example of that kind of behavior?
It's just pure dominance. Shut up. I'm the only
You're the
voice
king.
here. I'm the king.
Yeah.
It's a fiefdom.
Right.
And it's fun for a while, but it doesn't work with human beings over the long term. So I wanted to build these long-term relationships. People would come and go. I had some notoriety as a chef in the 80s and the early 90s, so people would hang out with me long enough to get their resume.
Right.
But they really didn't like me. So I looked in the mirror one day and I said, you're an asshole, dude. And, if you really want to accomplish your overarching goal, you need to change the way you navigate the planet.
The story of how he went from there to where he is now, which is helping people figure out how to be vulnerable leaders and really lead people in a way that's like, next level. I mean, he's a coach now. He was one of my coaches, and he's fantastic.
Wild story arc.
That's episode 3, I think, right? Yeah.
Ed is episode 3.
Episode 3. So watch that.
And he gets emotional, right? He got emotional.
He got emotional. You got emotional. I got emotional. We were all.
It was an emotional day.
Yeah, but it's good though, and it has funny parts too. So don't think that's gonna make you cry.
My number 3 has to be Emme. I know you know the name. If you haven't seen the episode, she was the world's first plus-size supermodel.
90s supermodel Emme.
Yeah, Cindy Crawford and Turlington, all those. She was right in there with them. Episode 2. It was a great episode. And she's my number 3, I guess, right? It's the story of when she was working with a photographer that she wanted to work with for the first time. And
Crazy.
She's always he did Harper's Bazaar. He was like the it guy. And he walked in, and it was her in a chair with the makeup artist,
Curlers
no one
in her
else.
hair. Yeah.
Right? He walks in and says, "Where's the model?"
And I was just so excited. So I had, hair and makeup for an hour and a half and looking fabulous. I'm sitting with my curlers in my hair, and he comes late and he slams the door. He comes in, and he's like, "Okay, where's the model?" Now he says this while I'm sitting in the director's chair with hair and makeup on either side of me in curlers. And he looks at me and there was silence, and he looks at me from my toes all the way up to my head and all the way down. And he goes, "I'm not shooting this fatty."
Oh, Lord.
And
Wow.
it was completely quiet. So I was really happy that I was older, B, that I wasn't an emotional mess, C, I swear to you, I wish many, many times over that I would have been like, "Dude, get down and do 20 with me," because I could have banged them out with him.
Oh, you would have killed him.
Now, could you imagine being her at that moment? And she said, "Fortunately, I
I
was
would have
older."
quit. Over. Game over. I would have been out. My number 2 is Emme.
Emme.
I geeked out over Emme. Like, oh my gosh, she's like a legend.
did.
She's
You're
like
a
a
fan
legend.
girl.
I loved her so much. So the story that I was psyched to hear was that when she was modeling with all those 90s supermodels, there was a point in time where she was doing a Revlon shoot with Halle Berry. And listen to the story. So she was doing a Revlon shoot with Halle Berry, and they were in their dressing rooms, and she said, "Hey, Halle, let's go check out Cindy Crawford."
Halle Berry and Cindy Crawford were all working with Revlon at the same time. And when we're all in dressing rooms, I would go over to Halle Berry's dressing room and go, "Let's go look at Cindy."
Oh my God, you would go look at Cindy?
Go over and there's Cindy Crawford, not a stitch, right? Not a stitch.
God, she's still just so
Exquisite.
exquisite.
Just gorgeous. That's the same as Christy Brinkley, though. I do have to say, Christy Brinkley, not a stitch, and she
70
just
something.
radiates.
So fun to hear that like models geek over other models, and like we're all just human beings, right? So that was my number 2. You guys have to watch that one.
Love it. My number 2, Brandon DeShields, episode 6. Went to prison, I don't know how many years, but he had to raise, he went to prison, I think 2 weeks after the birth of his child.
Yeah.
Right? So he had to kind of try to raise his kids for I think it was 9 years, or maybe it was 15. It was something like that in there that he was in prison. But he tells a story of when he comes out, he's still being a dad. He's like, even while he was in there, he was trying to make sure his kids don't end up like him, right? Which you would love to do if you've gone through that.
Oh, this is good. I love this one. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, in addition to, look, here's what it's like in here, which is horrifying, right? And he wanted his kids to know that. But he drove them around and he said, look at this giant home. He drove them around neighborhoods,
big
affluent
house.
neighborhoods.
It's a big
Here's
house.
a big house.
And this was like when COVID was going on. So we're just driving around. We look up like $1 million homes in Kennett. And we just pull up on the back roads and see. I'm like, look at this house. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, look, it costs this many millions of dollars. Like, yeah. I'm like, would you like to live in a house like this? And they're like, yeah, I'd like to live in a house like this for sure. I'm like, it's a big house. They're like, it is a big house. And I'm like, it's got a lot of rooms in it. Like, it's got a ton of rooms. I'm like, right. And then I drove them. It's like right on the edge of Westchester, but it's on a back road around the nursing home. It's called the Chester County Prison. It's a prison. And one name for prison is the big house. So I drove them by it. I'm like, hey, see that? That is the prison. That's also a big house. And that also has a lot of rooms in it. Now, you have a choice to make. Whatever choices you make, some choices can lead you to live in that multi-million-dollar house where it's going to be you and your family, or you can go to this one right here. Those choices are going to lead you to come right here, and this is still going to be a big house. Some of your family members might be in here also, but it's only going to be guys. Mm-hmm. It's all guys in here. You can't really, there's no Christmas, there's none of that stuff. Regardless of what they give you, it's not going to be like being home and spending time. So you have choices to make. I'm like, I never force them to make a choice.
So I just love, I've known Brandon for a number of years, and
he is a motivational speaker. Yeah.
He's a great guy. Like the guy he's become, and the dad he's become, and the personal trainer he's become, and the friend he's become. He's just a great redemption story, if you want to call it that. The whole episode.
Yeah, it's a longer episode, but it's worthwhile. Like the whole thing is
he's a good guy.
Fantastic.
Now I got to call him. I haven't talked to him.
You should call him. Why don't you call him? All right, so now we're on number 1.
Number 1.
So let's do the drum roll.
We're gonna have the same number one.
We're gonna have the same
Are
number
we gonna have
one.
the same- that would be bizarre. Well, my new number one
All right, my number one,
episode.
which I figured out first before Mark did, if we have the same one, is episode 1.
Oh no,
Nikki
I have
Stanzione.
episode 1. Nikki Stanzione.
Nikki Stanzione. Okay, wait. Let
Right.
me tell my
Wait for
story.
it.
Well, I had the Boogie Nights story, but you already told that.
Okay, well, that wasn't your number one though.
I know, but I couldn't decide between the Johnny Depp story and the Friends story. But I think the Johnny Depp story is going to be my number one. Is that yours?
I'm gonna wait. No, you
Okay,
tell your story.
okay. So the Johnny
It's a
Depp.
cliffhanger.
So Nikki Stanzione gets an audition with Johnny Depp in his heyday, right? So she's going to think she's actually going to be his little sister.
Did you say
little sister? Yeah. So which is when you see her, you'll see like there is some
Nikki cracks
a
me
bit of a resemblance. So it was in a hotel room.
I had an audition for Lou DiGiamo, who was, I believe, the director of Donnie Brasco, if I'm not mistaken. And he worked a lot with Johnny Depp. And again, now I sound like, oh, I'm such a big deal. I was literally doing a recurring character on Young and the Restless and then nothing. So I was just DJing on weekends, hoping to get work, auditioning and not getting the jobs. Then I get a call from my agent at the time and said, there's an audition. Johnny Depp is doing a movie. This is crazy. And you would play his younger sister, I believe it was something like that. And she's, a rebel. And it was basically everything I'm not. And I had to really dive into this like thought process of who is that person. And so I said, well, I need the sides, which sides are the script, right? The copy. And they said, there's no sides. It's all improvised. You're going to be improvising with Johnny. With Johnny
Depp.
Now, usually on an audition, you go
No
in,
pressure.
You
No
meet
pressure.
with
No
the
pressure.
Right. You meet with the casting.
Right.
And then maybe you go to a callback and then you meet some more people on the production. And then if you get to the screen test situation, then you get to meet the actor you'd be working with. This was the first audition, right?
Oh my gosh. So Johnny Depp was sitting in there in the room?
Still thinking about this makes me like get the chills. What was crazy about it was that I get the notification that it's going to be at this hotel, in this hotel room. So then I thought...
Red flag.
Creepy.
But not Johnny Depp.
Right. I thought, this is not good. This is not. So then I had my agent check it out and they said, no, this is definitely on the up and up, 100%. The casting director is going to be in the room with him. It's not just the two of you alone. It's very, 100% okay.
It's
All
very
professional. Yes. So sure enough, I did go on that audition and then I met him and he was wearing a red bandana. I remember that. He was super kind and we just improvised. And it was the weirdest experience because to this day, I can't believe that actually happened. I so rarely have talked about that.
Wow.
Because it seemed so unreal and unbelievable that I'm in a room auditioning and I'm a nobody at this point in my mind, right? And so I was very fortunate. It was an amazing experience.
Were you nervous?
Of course. I was petrified. I don't even know what I did. I couldn't even tell.
You blacked
I
out.
was 22. I don't even remember.
This is a fantastic story. So that's my number one. I loved her episode. And number one episode, number one favorite moment.
So my number one was not the Johnny Depp story.
Okay, another story from Nikki Stanzione.
And it was not the Friends story.
Oh shoot, what was it?
I can't believe you don't remember. My number one, episode 1, Nikki Stanzione, how she was a heartbeat away from being the co-host of American Idol
That's
with Ryan Seacrest.
The agent I was working with, he calls me and he says, there's a show in the UK. It's called Pop Idol and it's huge. And they're bringing it to America. And I believe it was Simon Fuller was bringing it to America. And it's going to be a big show on Fox. They're doing it kind of like a trial this summer. And they're looking for 2 hosts because on Pop Idol, they have 2 hosts.
Oh my God.
So they said, we already secured Ryan Seacrest as one, but we're looking for the second host. So I had the copy that said, this is American Idol. I had that script and I had to go in and say, do the whole thing. And it went really well. And I got a call back.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to host the show with that guy who I went to interview with to be his assistant. How fun. And I listen to him on the radio every day. This is so crazy. So I go to the callback. Everything goes really well. And then we find out because Pop Idol were 2 male hosts, they changed their mind and they're basically dumping the final girls that they had at the callback all girls are out. They're going to go for Brian Dunkelman, who ended up being the co-host and got fired after the first year.
Yeah. Oh, she would have been so good.
Imagine the trajectory of your life.
Do you remember his name? I don't
Dunkelman.
remember. John, what?
Is it Andrew Dunkelman? Something Dunkelman.
Dunkelman.
He lasted one season.
Yeah.
Right? And
You never heard from him again.
and Ryan
We don't remember his
Seacrest took
name.
over.
Yeah.
So what would have happened if they just agreed to try something different and not do two men, go with one?
What if she
Ryan
would have
and
knocked
two
off
Nikki?
Ryan? What if she would have become?
We wouldn't know her.
No, she would never have been on Crazy Game Changers.
It's funny.
Anyway, that's it. Is that it? That's it. That's our
That's
top
it. That's
10.
our top 10 from the first 10.
Listen, you guys. Listen, watch the episodes, like, subscribe, help us out.
Yeah, I just want you to enjoy it. Enjoy these top 10. And we're going to do this again. I like this. This is fun.
This is really fun.
We'll do top 10 for the next 10.
Yeah.
Awesome. And thank you to you, always.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
And thank you, Eric.
Oh, and thank you, Eric. Our studio genius. There he is. All right. See you guys. We'll talk to you soon. I was caught. That red light's on.
I guess we're gonna talk to the audience, like, you know what I mean. So we'll talk
Yeah.
to each other, but we can.
I'm sorry.
Can you see my tea over here?
3.
This is gonna be such a fun one for Eric to edit. Why do you always yell 3? What does that mean?
3, 2, 1.
Maybe you should tell the audience, like, why do you yell 3?
3, 2, 1. I'm counting myself in. That's what I'm doing.
Coming from live TV.
But you never hear 1. You never hear. Often you don't hear 2.
Boop, boop,
F-bomb.
boop, boop. 2, 1.
Go.
Ring, 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 ring.